Good morning, Church. And today I'll be speaking about food. Now, this is going to be an interesting topic, um, and I want to bring about some revelation and some wisdom around the whole notion of food, as well as not just what we eat, why we eat, as well as how we could eat better. So let's begin with some biblical caveats. Okay, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 8. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat. We are no better if we do. Okay, so let's put everything in in a kind of a balanced view. Today's sermon is not trying to convince you that food is the most important thing in life, nor is it trying to convince you that food will bring you close to God. Okay, the Bible very clearly says, food will not bring you closer to God. And when it says we are no worse off if we do not eat, we are no better if we do, I believe that's with regards to our relationship with God. Okay, so let's put that into context. Because clearly the Bible has a lot to say about food. Okay, and I think definitely when the Lord designed this earth, and when He designed uh, how we were to function this earth, He clearly gave a lot of thought to food and its role in our life, and what it can do for us. Okay, so I want to bring that across. So as I speak on food, if possible, you can have some form of a guide as to where to place in terms of importance on food is with regards to things in your life. Okay, so I want to encourage you to think about food in these three different uh, spheres of thoughts. Okay, and I think the goal, or my hope for you, is that that you would find a kind of a food, or a kind of a food philosophy, if you will, for lack of a better word, that would be an intersection of these three spheres. Okay, first one being health, second one being trajectory, third one being appreciation. Okay, and the reason why I encourage you to think about the intersection of these three spheres, because I do believe at any point in time, if you just focus on one sphere and not the other, you will have a very skewed idea on food and diet, in terms of what you eat, uh, that could lead to some very strange outcomes. Okay, so uh, so I'll briefly talk about them and then I'll go into detail. Health has to do with foods that make you healthy. Clearly, if we, you know, if we want to be healthy, we got to eat the right kind of foods. Philosophically, we all kind of know that intuitively. Uh, of course, later in human civilization, we have more and more science to back that up. But so that's one area. Uh, Second area is what I call trajectory, or where you're going in your journey in life. Okay, that has some bearing as to what kind of food you should and shouldn't eat. Okay, as a simple example, if someone's competing for the Olympics, okay, clearly they have some kind of a meal plan, that helps them perform better or do better in their competition. Okay, which may or may not be the most healthy thing. And so they try to find the intersection between the health and the trajectory, So they exclude food that are healthy but does not necessarily help them to get to where they're going, hence the term trajectory. Or they also exclude food that may help them get towards a trajectory, but might not be so healthy for them, you know. Uh, so so you look for kind of the intersection, healthy as well as helps you to get to where you're going. Appreciation is something that I added in as well because uh, you know we all don't want to live a miserable life. Okay, so for lack of a better term, I use the word appreciation, in the sense that it has to taste good. It has to at least be somewhat delicious or palatable. Uh, and and there's different again appreciation, different level of scale. You have some food that are extremely tasty, extremely uh, it's just amazing to eat, but that it's not healthy for you, and neither is it going to help you in your trajectory. So I'm not saying that you should never ever eat those food, uh, but what I'm saying is that you gotta keep in mind that the majority of the food that you want to eat is going to be in the intersection of these three circles. Any point in time, if you go too extreme on one or the other, you could end up in a pretty miserable life. You know, if you're just eating really, really healthy food, but you absolutely hate what you eat, I will sincerely ask you to reconsider uh, your idea of food. Okay, so that's kind of like the overview. So now let's kind of dig in and talk about it from a biblical standpoint, and to is it just an idea, or is there some spiritual kingdom understanding to food? Okay, so first off, in the first circle, let's talk about the health element to it. What's the biblical basis? That for us to believe that a God wants us to be healthy. B, that food have a role to play in us being healthy. Okay, clearly those two premises must exist for us to believe, in having a desire for food that would improve our health, right? So let's start with the biblical basis of that. Does the Lord really want us to have good health? And this is a good question. Okay, what is our understanding of good health, and what's the Lord's understanding of good health? And this is where I draw a lot of my revelation and inspiration from. Is is the idea of the kingdom of God, on what God believes, or what's God's goals and desires in the expression of the kingdom of God here on this earth. Uh, and and I'm convinced that the Lord wants us to live to be above 100 years old. And if you have sat through a number of my teachings in the past, you would have heard me speak on that topic, and so I'm not going to dwell too much on it. Uh, but what I want you to take away from it is that if God has a desire for the majority of us to live to be above 100 years old, and not just live above 100 years old, but live to be above 100 years old and be healthy in our later years as well, meaning that you're not frail and bedridden at 110 years old, but you're active, alert, and at 110 years old, okay, or at 120 years old. Okay, so when I first started teaching about this, you know, uh, people started wondering if it's even attainable, if even achievable, or was this something that was supposed to be in the Old Testament time, because those times you do not have the pollution that we have now. You do not have a lot of uh, issues, health issues that exist today. So maybe it was attainable, maybe it was possible for people to live above 100 years old, during biblical times. Maybe it's not possible now. So, but from my understanding of the kingdom of God and what the Lord wants to do, and if this is a desire of the Father, if He really wants us to live to be above 100 years old, you know, then to me, we got to have some clue, some evidence that it is still attainable today. Okay. Interestingly, I wasn't the only one that asked the question, you know. I discovered that there was another journalist from National Geography who was commissioned to inquire of the same question. Okay, so and he went out around the world to see if there's any evidence or proof that people could live to be above 100 years old. We're not talking about just one individual or an anomaly or something, but whether there were communities of people, you know, groups of entire people that live to be above 100 years old on a regular basis. And interestingly, he found such communities. In fact, he found six of them. He found six communities around the world. You know, one is Okinawa, Japan. He found another one in Costa Rica. He found another one in in America, Loma Linda, California. So from this varied geographical dispersion, we can make a few very interesting conclusions, okay, or derive some very interesting insights. First of all, it is not genetic, okay? We're talking about Japanese all the way down, all the way to Caucasian Americans. So from Asians all the way to Europeans to Americans. So clearly, it's not genetics, even though genes might have some role to play, but there's something else going on. That six communities that are fairly diverse around the world have large amount of the population that live above 100 years old. In fact, they're called centenarians. Okay, so it's not the genes. It's not a specific diet because clearly culturally their diets are really radically different from one another in terms of, you know, talking about Japanese food versus American food versus Costa Rica. I have no idea actually what they eat in Costa Rica. What kind of food that would be? I would think it would be some form of a Latin influence food. Uh, so uh, then the other one would be Sardinia. Uh, would be the other community as well, and I can't remember what the other few communities were. So he found these communities and he wrote a book about it. The book is actually entitled "The Blue Zones," and you can look up that book, you know, where he talks about these different communities he visited and what he found there. And so it's quite interesting. Okay? It's quite interesting that uh, that what the Lord desires have it is somewhat attainable in today's world. Um, but one of the things that he did find that even though they have different culinary or cultural influence on their food, there was definitely some similarities in terms of food with regards to the consumption of protein. You know, in all six communities, they definitely eat significantly less animal protein than the rest of the population around the world. Okay, so that's something that they found. You know, secondly, their meal sizes appear to be a lot smaller as well. You know, and a few other things. If you read the book, you'll discover. Okay, so definitely that food plays uh, a huge role in terms of our health. Okay, the book of Leviticus as well. The book of Leviticus talks about good food and bad foods. You know, so even in biblical times, the Lord tried to teach the people. You know, that there's some food that are good for you, and there's some food that are going to be bad for you. So I'm not here to tell you what good food and bad food are, but rather to inspire you and to encourage you to begin to ask yourself questions on what is good food and what is bad food in terms of for your health, in terms of achieving the Lord's desire for you to be healthy even in your old age, for you to be healthy and to live a healthy life above 100 years old. What does good food look like in that context? You know, I'm not sure what the bad foods are, uh, but one thing I do know is that uh, we have enough evidence today to show without any doubt that sugar, especially white processed sugar, is bad. It's really, really bad. Okay, there are tons of research out there. I'm not going to download all the research to you for you today to try to convince you that sugar is bad. That's not my intention to convince you sugar is bad. My intention is to convince you that there are some food that are bad. Okay, can we get that clear? And without doubt, I know sugar is bad, but uh, that's for you to discover. So there are good food and there are bad food with regards to your health. But in this segment of health, sphere of food, I want you to shift in terms of your understanding of health when you start to inquire what is good food and what's bad food. Okay, um, have the mindset that that you're trying to live to achieve the desire of your Father in heaven, which is for you to live a long and healthy life, one that's above 100 years old. Okay, so in that regard, in that mindset, what would good food and bad food look like? Okay, so that's the first sphere. The second sphere is trajectory. Okay, each of us have a different journey. Okay, and there's some food that help us along that journey. Okay, in Deuteronomy 8 verse 8, the Israelites were promised, a good land, a land with wheat, barley, vines, figs, and pomegranates, and land of olive trees and honey. Okay, now you gotta know that the Bible is actually quite precise. Okay, so when the Lord says something like that, He's just not randomly picking up crops, you know, uh, or favorite food of the people. Okay, there is a reason why He specifically mentioned those crops to the Israelites. But here's the important thing, okay, that I want you to understand. Okay, He was giving this promise to the Israelites on a journey. Okay, there's some things that in a journey, there's something that happened in the past, and there's a present, and there's a future to where they're going and what is needed from them. Okay, and in that regard, wheat, barley, vines, figs, and pomegranates were going to be important to the Israelites in terms of where they need to go. Okay, uh, and I think a large part of it came out because they were slaves, so presumably uh, they were not the most healthy people, uh, partly because they just could not get the kind of food that their body may need, So in other words, that they had a lot of catch up that they needed to do health wise. Okay, and these foods that the Lord mentioned, interestingly, in today's science, we now know that these specific foods are what we call superfoods. Okay, because for whatever reasons, they have an extraordinary high content of antioxidants in them. Okay, so for the Israelites during that time on their journey, these were the important food for where they needed to go. Okay, in terms of their life journey. So that's what I mean by another consideration is trajectory. Okay, where is the Lord leading you in your life? Where, what are your next uh, things that that you're going through in life, and what food would help you along that journey. Okay, that's the other way when you think about this second sphere called trajectory. Okay, now let me give you some specific journeys that you can ask yourself if you're in one of those. A recovering from a health situation. Okay, if for some of you, you are recovering from a specific health condition, maybe it's an illness, a sickness, or or there's some health issues, and so there are going to be some specific food, that will help you along the journey. Okay, that's food uh, important for your trajectory. I gave an example earlier. If you are training for the Olympics, again, there's going to be certain kind of food, that will help you along that trajectory, the journey. The third one also is something that I discovered along my journey. There was a period of time where academics was really important for me, and I needed to excel in it and to do really well in it. And I did realize at that point, that if I were to change my diet, okay, and add certain food and change the way I eat certain things, my grades actually change. You know, it helped me study better. It allowed me to achieve certain grades in my, especially my math results. That I know that certain food really gave me an advantage. You know, here's the other interesting one: pregnant women who are carrying a baby. The food of an expecting mother, the food that they eat, we now have the science to show that can have a long lasting impact on the baby's risk of developing either mental health disorder, impaired social behaviors, lower cognitive abilities, or increase their response to stress. Okay, and these are long term impact. In other words, what the mother eats while the baby's in the womb could significantly impact the entire life of that baby from the time they're born to and for the rest of their life. Just because the mother ate certain foods in that 9 months while they were carrying them. So, so, so when we're all on a journey. So you gotta ask yourself, what journey are you on? And are there certain food, that would help you along that journey? Now, the third sphere I want you to consider is appreciation. Okay, and like I said, uh, this has to do with how good a food tastes. You know, uh, the first miracle of Jesus, was turning water into wine, but it wasn't just wine. I want you to pay attention to that. It was the fact that the wine was the finest wine. As people, when the Lord designed us to appreciate food, we can tell the difference between food that tastes good and food that tastes less good. Okay, and that's good and right. Okay, there's nothing wrong. Okay, yeah, I don't want you to condemn yourself to eating bad food just because it's healthy, or eating bad food just because it helps you in your journey. Okay, I want you to strive to find healthy food that help you along the journey, that is also uh, to your understanding, and is something that you appreciate because to you it will taste good. Okay, that would be your challenge. That would be where you strive in. Of course, I'm not. There are some people who go the other extreme. It's all about appreciating the food. And an example of that in the Bible would be Esau. Esau sold his birthright just for food, but the food smelled so good and tastes so good that he was willing to sell his birthright from you. I'm not asking you to do that, but what I want you to consider is that you know uh, when you think of food, you know it is right to consider you know uh, what is good food to you, what would taste good, and have that be another sphere, and you would want to strive for the intersection of these three spheres. Okay. Uh, if this sounds too challenging, let me tell you a story of Abby. For some reason, I never actually watched MasterChef, but somehow I ended up watching MasterChef Junior, which is the children version of MasterChef. Okay, and in particular, I really like the season two, and I want to show you a short clip, if you don't mind, of season two, episode 4. Okay, tell a little bit of story. Okay, so Abby was a contestant. Okay, in this show, and it's really interesting because and I hope these stories will encourage some of you that you can strive to find food that intersects in all these three areas. Okay, because uh, 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 Abby was contesting this. Okay, and later you'll see in the clip. In the first part of this episode, they had the first competition was to fry egg. Okay, it's just a sunny side up egg, but they were limited in their time. I think they were given like 10 minutes. And and this is where the competition comes in. Is the contestant that can fry the most number of perfectly fried eggs in that 10 minutes would win. Okay, but not just win, the number of eggs that they fry correctly would actually give them an advantage in the next competition, which they did not tell what advantage was. And later you will see in the reveal, that the advantage was that in the second competition where they're supposed to cook their signature dish or to cook their restaurant quality dish, they are only allowed to have the number of ingredients equal to the number of eggs that they fried correctly in the first part of the competition. Okay, so this is the story of Abby uh, in that competition, and I just want you to watch it because sometimes when I feel pretty down or feel like something's quite impossible, I like to watch this clip just because a I love food, I love to eat, but secondly, I just found it really encouraging, and I'll talk more about it after the clip. So why don't you sit back, relax, and watch this clip.
You will have 10 minutes to fry us as many eggs as you possibly can.
Each successful sunny side up egg will earn you a huge advantage in the upcoming challenge. And I mean huge. Clear?
Yeah! Yeah!
Your 10 minutes starts now. Let's go.
We have taken a good look at all of your eggs. Remember, every perfect sunny side up egg gives you an advantage in the next challenge. So let's begin at the bottom end. The young home cook with a total of 2 eggs. Abby, please come to the front.
The next 2 young home cooks had a total of 4 perfect eggs each. Una and Adea, please come down.
The next 2 that managed to perfect 5 sunny side up eggs. Josh and Levi, please.
With a total of 7, Logan.
Me and Sean are left, and the winner of this challenge is going to get an advantage, and whatever advantage it is, I want it.
With a remarkable total of 10 perfect sunny side up eggs.
I've been winning a lot lately, and I do not want to stop.
Please give it up for the egg man of tonight. 10 perfect eggs. Congratulations, Sean.
I won. I have a huge advantage in the pantry. I don't know what it is, but I'm really excited.
Sean, you edged Samuel by 2 with 8 perfect sunny side up eggs. Guys, the number of eggs that you cook matters. It matters a lot because for the next challenge, you have to make us an amazing MasterChef worthy dish using the same number of ingredients from the pantry as the number of eggs that you perfectly prepared.
2 ingredients. Oh no. This is not good.
So you see the first part of the clip, you see her only able to get 2 eggs correctly, able to fry 2 eggs correctly, and now you see her entering to the second phase of her competition, and all the other kids, have 4, 5, even the one the most was, I think, like 8 or 10 ingredients that they could use for their next competition, and she's only limited to 2. Okay, and I want you to watch the next clip on what she's able to produce with only 2 ingredients. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this.
You have to make us an amazing MasterChef-worthy dish using the same number of ingredients from the pantry as the number of eggs that you perfectly prepared.
2 ingredients. Oh no. This is not good.
Oh, come on. Oh, wow, come on, you'll be fine with 2
I
eggs.
can do this. I know how to do this.
Fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. Okay? Come on.
You could do it.
You can do this, young lady.
I only have 2 ingredients, though. I really wish I made more eggs, but I'm hoping that I can still pull this off.
Now you all know the number of ingredients you can get from the pantry. In this next challenge, we want all of you to dream big and imagine owning and running your very own restaurant. Tonight, we want you to cook us your signature dish that will one day belong on your menu from the restaurant of your dreams. Excited?
Yes, Chef.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and stop. Hands in the air. Good job, guys. Seriously, great job, all of you. It's now time to taste. Let's start with Abby. Let's go.
Abby only had 2 ingredients. That's pretty much impossible. I don't know. Maybe she'll really pull it off and be the biggest success in human history.
First of all, you started off with 2 ingredients. In fact, you didn't even need a basket coming out of the pantry.
No.
You had salmon and asparagus.
Yes.
It looks like there's a lot more than 2 ingredients on that plate. Did you steal ingredients?
No.
Did you borrow ingredients?
No.
Did you find other ingredients under the sink?
No.
Come on, seriously?
There's 2.
Describe the dish, please.
I've made broiled salmon and asparagus 5 ways.
Asparagus 5 ways?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So, this asparagus is what?
Sauteed and boiled.
So, this one on top, what's that?
Those are 2 types, fried bottoms and the fried tops.
Wow, 5 tops, 5 bottoms. And this here, this sort of sauce,
That's asparagus too.
too much asparagus makes your pea green. Looks like I'll be having a fluorescent time in the bathroom later. How'd you cook the salmon?
I broiled it.
What should I be expecting inside the salmon? White, dry, pink? Where are we going?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Guys, please. The salmon is perfect. Nailed it. It's pink, it's glistening, and it is perfect. Wow. Here's the thing. I thought you were going to struggle at 2 ingredients. Young lady, the salmon's cooked perfectly. I love that imagination 5 ways. You sound like a chef, you cook like a chef, and you are confident, but you've got the right to be confident because you can cook. Great job.
Thank you,
Seriously.
Chef.
Remind me, you're 13,
No.
11,
No.
10,
No.
9.
No.
How old are you?
8.5.
Stop it. Place of birth.
Virginia.
I'm going to check those records. Great job. Amazing. Amazing,
Thank you.
amazing.
This is effectively like a two-course lunch then.
Kinda.
First the soup, and then the salmon.
Yes.
The salmon's perfectly cooked. Asparagus fried are crispy and delicious. But the most amazing thing here is this asparagus soup, because it's creamy, full-flavored, has depth of flavor. How you managed to take the water you were boiling the other asparagus in and turn it into a soup is truly, truly smart. Good job, Abby. Really.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you very much.
So, what do you think? You know, pretty amazing, huh? You know, amazing. She's only 8 years old, and she's able to produce that with only two ingredients. Only two ingredients. Now, I know that talking about food, you know, especially in a country like Malaysia, we have a lot of really, really good food. Okay, but I want you to think about what are your health goals, you know, with regards to the kingdom of God and what God's desire for you for your health goals. Secondly, I want you to think about your trajectory, you know, what's the journey that the Lord's bringing you on, and how does food play with regards to that journey you're on. Thirdly, of course, you know, appreciation, you know, can you, you know, find food that intersect in all these three spheres, you know, and most importantly, you know, can you start today? Can you make a shift, you know, in the food that you eat, and not do that a month later, 2 months later, but start today, you know, do something that will shift your understanding and your appreciation for food. And when you're really struggling, you know, I want you to think about Abby, you know, who was only given two ingredients, and she not only had to cook something, she had to cook something that was impressive, something that was going to taste good, something that was going to wow the judges. Let us pray.